This week on Sci-Fi Buzz, the campy Corman classic Humanoids from the Deep gets remade for the 90s. Step aside Stephen King and Clive Barker, women horror writers have arrived. Digging up more treasures from the movies in Bob's basement. And 2 original members of the Enterprise crew return to duty on Star Trek Voyager.
I wish I'd have thought of that when I was your age. Took me 3 years just to make ensign.
Prepare. Stand by. The buzz.
Movies. Personalities.
Sci-Fi. FX.
Behind the scenes.
Cutting edge. Get ready.
Sci-Fi Buzz. It has been a very strange summer for news, but here at the Buzz, we've been on top of it. Hi, everybody. Mike Jarek here in Sci-Fi Central. Welcome to Sci-Fi Buzz. Now, our professionals here have uncovered a lot of, well, kind of odd news stories for you. We're going to start with Dave. Give us some highlights.
Okay, look right here. Baywatch Nights is shifting to a paranormal format.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
Pamela Lee, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talk about abnormal. I mean, paranormal.
Okay, let's see. Newt Gingrich wrote a sci-fi novel that bombed.
Well, no Newt is good, Newt.
Yeah. You know the guy who played The Fly?
Jeff Goldblum, of course.
Yeah, he's like the hottest actor in Hollywood now.
And plus, he's married. Who's he married to? Not Gina Davis anymore.
No.
Laura Dern. Laura
Yeah,
Dern.
so-
They're not married? Oh, they should be.
Yeah. So he's like, you know, he's in these 2 big films, ID4 and Jurassic
And there's
Park.
his, the money he makes, $12 million a picture.
Yeah, so he's, you know, he's up there. But
Kinda
John,
like me.
John dug up the best one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Susan, you have anything? No. Allison? Nothing? Just sitting there chatting? What do you have?
William Shatner's remodeling his LA house.
Yeah.
He's gonna make one of the bathrooms look like the bridge of the Enterprise.
No.
Yeah, but there's more. He's ordered a custom-made toilet in the shape of the Enterprise.
So he will go where no man actually has gone before. So you see, it has been a big news summer. And speaking of Star Trek, you know they taped a new episode of Voyager, and guess who showed up on the ship? George Takei and Grace Lee Whitney. And we were there. It's been 30 years since the original Star Trek series premiered on network television, and the celebration is on. This weekend, a massive fan fiesta is taking place in Huntsville, Alabama.
Return fire.
And next week, Star Trek Voyager hops on the party train with an episode featuring 2 cast members from classic Trek. But both George Takei and Grace Lee Whitney are revealing little about the storyline.
Well, we're making a guest appearance on an episode titled Flashback, and hence the 2 of us from the Starship Excelsior of Star Trek VI, the Voyage, the Undiscovered Country.
Your mind to my mind. Your thoughts to my thoughts.
We'll flesh out the picture without giving too much away. Tuvok, a Vulcan played by Tim Russ, is haunted by repressed memories from his youth. He mind melds with Captain Janeway, and they journey into his past, where they encounter Takei and Whitney's characters.
You're not going to have time to drink that, you know. You're due on the bridge in 5 minutes.
It's not for me. It's for the captain. I've observed that Captain Sulu drinks a cup of tea each morning. I thought he might enjoy a Vulcan blend.
Fittingly, Takei found out about his appearance on the space-based show through the wonders of cyberspace.
I've got a telephone call from a fan saying, I understand you're going to be doing Star Trek Voyage. And I said, I know nothing about that. Where did you find out about it? And he said, well, it's on the internet. And a few days later, actually, I was in Montreal on location doing another film, and my agent called me in Montreal and said, they were right, you are doing Star Trek Voyager.
Both Trek vets profess to being fans of Voyager, the 3rd spin-off from the original series. Whitney is particularly impressed by Trek's first female captain, played by Kate Mulgrew.
They call her Captain Kate, you know, and it's like Captain Kirk and Captain Kate, and I mean, she is really good. I think her presence is dynamic, just dynamic.
Mr. Tuvok, if you're going to remain on my ship, you're going to have to learn how to appreciate a joke. And don't tell me Vulcans don't have a sense of humor, because I know better.
Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry died more than 3 years before Voyager's premiere in early 1995. But Takei believes the great bird of the galaxy would have been pleased with the newest addition to his nest.
My personal feeling is that Voyager probably comes closest to what our Star Trek
think so,
was the sense of camaraderie,
I think so.
the sense of family, the sense of working together. I think that is what our Star Trek was. And some of the others got a little darker, I think, and this comes back home again.
Whitney's character was written out of the original series after 6 episodes, only to be brought back for several of the feature films. Now, after schmoozing with Voyager writer Brandon Braga, the actress has hopes she'll return to the bridge again in the not-too-distant future.
He said, I want you to notice that you're not going to be killed. You're not going to die, either one of you, so that we can bring you back. Isn't that nice?
Sci-Fi Buzz.
And now, once again, it's time to go to Bob's basement to visit one of the world's biggest collectors of science fiction memorabilia and the guy who really knows his way around a dumpster, Bob.
You know, Bob Burns, I love these trips down to see your props in your basement, but I have a personal question for you this time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in a lycanthrope?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Where?
Wolf.
I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, wouldn't you want to be a pepper? Now, David Naughton,
Yes.
Mr. Dr. Pepper, was
That's
the
right.
star of American Werewolf in
Certainly
London,
was.
right?
This is him right here.
Here
These
he
are his
is
faces.
as a bald guy.
Yeah, Rick Baker made these up. He won an Academy Award for this
Yeah.
makeup, as a matter of fact. These are the different stages. This is where he's first starting to change. Here's where he's changing a little bit more. And these are used to pull molds off of for these faces, which ends up being these guys right here out of foam rubber.
So that's a mask, basically.
It's sort of like a mask. Yeah, it's all glued down to his face so he can get some movement out of it and different things like that. Come this way. Now, there's a scene in the theater where he starts to change all of a sudden. He's not really aware of it, and he suddenly looks, and this happens.
Ooh, boy, those aren't Lee press-on nails, are they?
Look at that.
That is nasty. How's that feel, though?
That's a good back
Give me a quick
scratch.
one.
It's not bad. Pretty good, huh?
Oh,
Not
yeah.
bad, yeah.
Ooh.
And here's how it works. It's a deal like this, and it's a little wire, and it pulls, and there you go.
Simple as
Push it
that.
in. Come over here. I want to show you something that's really neat.
Boy, there's somebody in need of a bikini wax right there.
These are the big full-size suits, you might say, or bodies of him. That's the first stage where he's laying on the floor and he's almost changing into the wolf. They had just his head and his hands come up out of the stage floor attached to this. And then the final stage before he becomes the big guy is this guy. And you saw him for a very few seconds. And he was just on the screen quivering like that is all you saw.
Trembling.
That's it. And then, of course, later on, he became this guy.
The Big Mama.
The Big Mama. He's really an ugly guy.
Ever heard of Nair?
But there was a guy inside this thing that wore this like a costume. It was like a cantilever thing. It was actually on like a wheelbarrow. The guys in the back had wheels on it. The reason the guy was in here is that he could make the arms move like he's walking. He's barely actually even touching the ground. And then they had cables in here that this head had slight movement to it and stuff. And they had a close-up head just like this. It did all of the snarls with the brow furring and all that.
So where'd they get this hair?
Now, the hair is yak hair from the yak animal. It's very expensive because it has to be imported.
Yeah. You get it off your back, don't you?
When with full moon, yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cost me anything.
How much is it?
I've heard it's about $100 a square foot, something like that. It's all hand done. Each one is like poked in by itself.
Well, when you come down here, let's say a fuse goes out upstairs. You come down here at night. Doesn't this freak you out that this thing's in your basement?
No, not at all. I get more scared when you're here. They're my friends. They'd never bother me.
They're your friends?
Why, sure.
I think we need to know more about you, Bob. Would you hang around during this commercial here so I can talk to you?
Sure. Yeah, I'll stick around.
Bring in a couch, will you?
Yeah.
Lie down.
Thank
We're coming right back.
Okay.
Coming up, exploitation filmmaker Roger Corman gets politically correct when he remakes Humanoids from the Deep. Stay locked on this channel.
Being exterminated.
If you're like most people, you probably lined up around the block for this summer's big-budget genre blockbusters. Well, look out, film fans, because you ain't seen nothing yet. The summer of '97 is shaping up to be the biggest sci-fi bonanza ever. Sigourney Weaver will return for another installment of Aliens, and Total Recall director Paul Verhoeven will bring us the effects-heavy Starship Troopers. But there's more. Steven Spielberg returns to the director's chair for The Lost World, the hugely anticipated sequel to Jurassic Park. And George Clooney will don the cape and mask for Batman and Robin. The new Bat film will co-star Chris O'Donnell, Alicia Silverstone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as supervillain Mr. Freeze. Holy casting budget.
For centuries, Mars has captivated observers on Earth.
It's hard to have been living on Earth recently and not heard about life on Mars. According to NASA, there's a high probability that microscopic life once existed on the red planet. And though Hollywood has assumed there's life on Mars for years, the film community is quickly reacting to NASA's latest findings. Warner Brothers has changed its press release for Tim Burton's upcoming film, Mars Attacks, promising that the picture will, quote, offer definitive proof of life on the angry red planet on Friday, December 13th. And as soon as B-movie king Roger Corman heard the news, he rushed his own Mars project into production. The $20 million Mars Lives starts shooting in November for a hurried release this spring. And that's the latest buzz. By the way, folks, our Buzz board craves your recommendations.
My name is Simon Body from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I'd like to recommend for anybody who's a fan of Babylon 5, the new books that are out. The authors really keep their characters alive, and they really, really keep your interest in it. I'm reading the most recent one, book number 6, Betrayals by S.M. Sterling. Really good book. I highly recommend it.
When Humanoids from the Deep was cranked out of Roger Corman's infamous low-budget filmmaking factory in 1980, it was destined to become a cult classic. Now this tale of salmon monsters who savor bikini-clad beachgoers has been remade for the Showtime series Roger Corman Presents.
Humanoids from the Deep is the same basic story appealing to the same basic drives as the original, but the externals of the story are brought up to date. There's a greater concern with the environment, with ecology, and so forth.
Robert Carradine, part of the famous acting family, is one of the stars of the new Humanoids. He says he was drawn to the project after discovering that the script was environmentally friendly.
I really didn't expect Roger to have anything with a green theme to it, but it went beyond just monster enters from stage left, eats, teenager, moves off. And it had more to it than that.
We're really gonna knock him out so he doesn't move during the tape.
I think that's fine. I'm in total agreement.
Let's face it, there are certain things fans have come to expect from Corman films. Over-the-top action sequences, man and woman eating monsters, and blood. Lots of gooey, icky, sticky blood.
There's a scene where one of our leading ladies has a monster come out of her body without blowing it. And that was pretty bizarre.
But Corman humbly offers his own take on the winning formula that has catapulted campy films like Little Shop of Horrors and A Bucket of Blood into the ranks of cult classics.
If there is such a thing as a Roger Corman classic, and I'm not certain there is, it isn't that we try to make them campy. We actually take the films very seriously, but we try to put humor in each one of them so that the audience can relax a little bit and enjoy themselves.
Though no one's talking numbers, Corman is notorious for producing films on shoestring budgets. But he's cleverly devised a way to upgrade the images on projects like Humanoids.
I deliberately overspend the Showtime budgets because the films go theatrically overseas, and we actually make more money internationally than we do in the United States. So we're able to give Showtime a considerably bigger caliber of picture than they normally would get, and still know there's a room for profit for us somewhere in the world.
Yet to air on Showtime's Corman Fest, a live-action version of Vampirella featuring Talissa Soto as the comely comic strip heroine.
I would hope that the viewer would want to watch Roger Corman Presents in the expectation of getting something that's a little wilder, a little bigger, a little more imaginative than the competition.
Next, horror writers Joyce Carol Oates, Lucy Taylor, and Tananarive Due. Wait one. Well, for all of you out there who thought that our producer Susan Hyman, who you love so much, had been abducted by someone, aliens, whatever, you're wrong. Here she is. She's back, and she's bad.
And I was abducted by work, Mike, if you must know.
Oh, we're whining now.
But I will give you a slight secret scoop. A couple months ago, I was at a convention, and this guy saw me and called me the grandma of Sci-Fi Buzz. So I thought maybe I was just around too much. People were getting too familiar with me, so I decided to lay low for a while so you'd all start to appreciate me
Did
again.
we keep paying you during this period, though?
Yes, because I have been working very hard.
Doing what?
I've been preparing a story on Chris Carter's new show, Millennium.
Oh, yeah?
I was in New York with Harlan Ellison at the Horror Writers of America
That
Awards
is working
banquet.
itself.
I've been doing a story on The Tick. Townsend Coleman. I got to meet the guy who plays
met the guy who
You met
wrote
Ben
The Tick.
Atlin. We're going to show you that story later this fall. And, you know, I've been working very, very hard.
But I know you also got to meet a lot of horror writers, right?
When I was in New York, I
Hold on
met
a second.
lot
We're in the wrong area for this
of-
intro.
okay.
Come here.
I met a lot of women horror writers. And we met newcomer Tananarive Due, Lucy Taylor, the queen of erotic fiction,
Yes.
and Joyce Carol Oates. Fascinating, talented women you will never meet like
It's good to
these
have you
three.
back, Susan.
Thank you,
Let's
Mike.
watch her work. Meet 3 women writers with one united cause: to captivate readers with their horrifying prose.
Horror is in the eye of the beholder. I love sex and I love violence, and gee, I think I've done my research.
I think horror writers have their fingers on the pulse of something very, very primordial.
Tananarive Due, Lucy Taylor, and Joyce Carol Oates have made their marks on the horror world. All were honored at the recent Horror Writers of America Awards banquet, and all admit to drawing upon experiences from their youth to conjure up their dark literary images.
I think most of us feel some measure of anxiety simply about living our lives, and much of it has to do with having been very small once physically and looking up at an adult world possibly malevolent and certainly out of our control.
Lucy Taylor, whose short stories have made her the queen of erotic horror, was raised in Virginia by her mother and grandmother.
I come from a really repressed Southern Gothic family. You know, I think a lot of us, when we think of dysfunctional families, there's the stereotypical everybody's drunk and violent and passing out on the floor. And no, my family was not like that. It was being raised like being raised in a wax museum. Everybody was absolutely proper, absolutely superficial. God forbid you should suspect someone of having an inner life. And it was really quite awful.
Tananarive Due, a former journalist from Miami, has burst onto the horror scene with her first novel, The Between. As the daughter of civil rights activists, Due was exposed to racism at an early age.
Well, yes, there was pain. I mean, I remember very distinctly when we moved. I mean, we had one neighbor who would throw garbage into our yard. In fact, that's the scene that's in The Between, where they moved to a neighborhood and the neighbor throws garbage in their yard.
Taylor finds writing in the horror vein therapeutic.
It's a wonderful way of exorcising one's own demons. My life is frequently very chaotic, and if I can take a bad situation of my own life, and if I can channel some of that energy into writing something that's then published, then I can say, well, I'm not so sorry that this difficult period happened, because, hey, look, if I hadn't gone through this, I wouldn't have this story.
Joyce Carol Oates is a prolific storyteller who writes in several different styles, but a fondness for the macabre is apparent in a good deal of her work.
The imagination seems so deep and fathomless. It's really it's sometimes very horrifying and sometimes very beautiful. I guess if one accepts the beauty, the great work of Mozart and Chopin, one has to also accept the lurid horror that also comes out of the same psyche.
Ever wonder how horror writers are affected by the troubling visions that spring from their imaginations? Well, Due, who recently completed another supernatural novel, made this confession.
Writing this book scared me. And what scared me even more was that because I had a full-time job, I could only write in the very early morning, which was fine, or late at night until I fell asleep.
So I'd go to bed with these fresh images of whatever I was trying to conjure up to frighten the reader there in front of me while I'm staring at the ceiling at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to go to sleep.
At first glance, one might mistake these women as being sweet and, well, slightly innocent souls. But their terrifying tales exposes them for what they are. 3 writers with a special flair for scaring the pants off of people. Ever since Independence Day came out, that Bill Paxton has become one big-time movie star.
It's Bill Pullman in Independence Day. Paxton was in Twister.
I always get that wrong. Well, anyway, now it's even more confusing because Bill Pullman is going to be in a high seas thriller called Supertanker by Dean Devlin, as a matter of fact. And then Bill Paxton is also going to be in a high seas thriller, James Cameron's Titanic. That should be pretty... Wait a minute. Do I have that right? Is it Pullman in?
Yeah. And you know, want to hear something else really cool? Pullman and Paxton have actually worked together. They did a sci-fi thriller in 1989 called Brain Dead. And don't call it a double bill.
Well, I didn't even think of that one. That's good. Hey, it's good. Brain Dead, my life story, apparently. Listen, we're going to take next week off because next Friday is Friday the 13th, so we have the whole day off for obvious reasons. But we're going to connect again with you on Sci-Fi Buzz in 2 weeks. See you then.
Hey, there's no other show like it in the world. The masters of horror and science fiction converge, and you're invited to the party. Worldcon 96 live from planet Earth, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Sci-Fi Saturday. Now stay tuned for Inside Space next on the Sci-Fi Channel.